Hello and welcome. I'm here today with Fiona Macbain. Fiona lives in Inverness and is the author of two self-published novels and another one completed. She's also written an article recently for Scots Magazine. This is partly because of Fiona's wild camping videos on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram, which have brought her some international attention, millions of viewers, and as a consequence, many welcome book sales. Welcome, Fiona, and thank you for agreeing to have a chat with me today about your writing.
Well, thanks for having me on. It's lovely to meet you.
So, starting off, when did you start writing and how did the ideas for your novels come about?
Well, I mean, it's a kind of a long-held, lifelong ambition to write a novel. And my second novel, Glasdom, I actually wrote the initial scenes from it a long, long time ago when I was in my early 20s. But just kind of life got in the way and things, and I didn't really have the confidence and the time and to sort of knuckle down and do the actual work because it's just such a lot of work, isn't it, writing a book? And but then my first husband was Tunisian, and I lived out in Tunisia for 3 years and ended up having to leave there with my baby. And I left a lot of my possessions and things behind in a business. So it was a bit dramatic, my leaving Tunisia. And when I came back, and when she was little, this was in 1999. I wrote a full-length memoir, sort of recounting my experiences in Tunisia, and I sent that to quite a few literary agents, and a couple actually asked to see the full manuscript, which of course gives you a bit of hope. But they ultimately felt they said that it wasn't quite a travelogue, it wasn't quite awful enough to be a look what awful thing happened to me type of memoir. And I actually think if I wrote the memoir now, there's maybe more of a market now, but back then they didn't want to take it any further. So anyway, I thought to myself, well, my goal was always to write a novel. And so if the memoir wasn't dramatic enough, I would take the sort of what happened to me, which was leaving Tunisia penniless with a baby, and I would write a fictional story around it. So and that really kind of so that's when I started writing Daughter Disappeared. But then I kind of remarried another two babies, and that took a bit of time and concentration away. And it wasn't until my two sons were starting nursery that I think, and I turned 40, and I just suddenly thought, oh my goodness, if I don't get on and do this, I'm never going to do it, and I just suddenly the motivation came to me, and I spent about the next 5 or 6 years writing. And I think once I got into the swing of it, I just devoted all my spare time to it. Um, I had my daughter was just sort of a young adolescent at that time, and my two sons were just started nursery. They were like 2 and 3 or something. So I mean that was quite challenging. And but I just got up early every day, and I brought both the two books forward at the same time. I kind of worked on them both at the same time, which looking back, I think, why did I do that? But it just seemed right at the time. And so, because Daughter Disappeared is quite a kind of hard-hitting thriller, it's quite serious. Whereas Gladstone's a thriller, but got a wee bit of dark humor to it. It's not quite as serious. But both of them kind of cover themes of women's issues and women's lives and things. And so I when they were around completed, it must have been around about 2014, 2015. I started contacting literary agents and tried to find an agent. And I had a big spreadsheet, and had the red book, the writers and artists
Mm,
books, because
handbook,
you
yeah.
weren't quite going using the internet so much at that time. And just, oh, the relentless slog for weeks and weeks of just, identifying agents and looking at what submissions they wanted. And it was, very time consuming, tailoring your synopsis and the samples you're going to send to them and everything. Um, so I did that, but I wasn't getting anywhere. Didn't get any responses, or just rejection. And that is, it's hard. That's hard. That's the hardest part of the whole writer process, is just the kind of rejection that you face trying to find a publisher. And around about that time, I started reading this book by Ben Galley about self-publishing, and I thought, well, this is quite interesting. Maybe I could do that. And and I got in touch with this Expo North. Pete Urpeth from Expo North was super helpful. He had some money to help local writers and things, so he helped me with. He paid for some editing help and some um, sort of a few weeks of kind of a few sessions of tutorials on self-publishing because it was a bit of a minefield. But I learned a lot about it, and I thought I decided just to go for it. And I was kind of fortunate because I knew I was going to need to, if you're going to self-publish and you've got no real marketing budget, you need to have some way of sort of promoting the book. So, and I've always quite liked, even when my kids were young, I liked making Facebook posts just for my friends, just funny posts about my kids and things, and people always seemed to like them. And so I decided to write a blog, and so the original memoir that I wrote about my time in Tunisia, I turned that into a blog series that I published on WordPress, and then I used that, and it was the early days of Facebook sponsored posts, so I it was in those days you could spend £20 on a Facebook sponsored post, and the reach would be thousands. So I used my blog and I publicized my blog on Facebook. And I said the interest was Tunisia. This was for Daughter Disappeared. And it just kind of the power of social media, it straight away found people who were interested in Tunisia and interested in reading. And that my blog just got thousands and thousands of hits. And I mean, that was lucky for me because then I had this, I sort of published the blog every kind of week. I can't even remember exactly, every week or so. And it was getting a lot of hits and a lot of my Facebook page built up, and the blog was getting a lot of followers. So then when I published Daughter Disappeared, eventually I used Readsy to get editorial help and to get the book cover done. I mean, it was all a lot of work and quite
Mm.
expensive. But once I did publish it, I had this big audience already for sort of the Tunisian blog and interested in my story and my writing, I guess. So the book probably did better than I expected as a self-published novelist, And then because Glasdom had come up, I'd had it ready around about the same time. I published Daughter Disappeared in November 2016, and then I published Glasdom the following April in 2017. And I used the same editor and book cover designer and things. And because then I already had a bigger audience because the daughter disappeared and the whole Tunisian sort of thing, that kind of spilled over a little bit into Glasdom. If people had enjoyed the first book, then they bought the second book. And I kind of marketed it a little bit more towards, the Scottish audience. And so yeah, that's how the books came about. And I've been trying to finish, well, it then took me a long time to write a sequel for Glasdom. And I think, well, after the first two books were published, I found myself spending most of the next year, or maybe more than that, just publicizing and selling the books. And that's the relentless slog when you're self-published. You've got no help or support to do that. And it's quite a lot of work. And then I was trying to write, and then COVID came along and I was kind of busy during COVID, and I didn't I had a bit of a pause. But then I finished my second Glasdrum book, and I've paid quite a lot to have it edited and things, and it's just sitting there ready to be published. But I am going to try and find a publisher for that, and for my third Glasdrum book, so it's going to be a trilogy. And but I have yet to write. Well, I've kind of started writing the third Glasdrum book, but um, progress is very slow. So that's the story of my novels.
Right. So you're digging out the writers and artists handbook again, and because trying this different route for your new book.
Yes, I think so. I mean, I did look into it a little bit at the agents, and then I got put off because I just remembered how time consuming it is making
Yeah.
submissions. And Um, so that's a task ahead, which I might try and find an agent. But I am hoping one of the reasons I've been really focusing on building up my social media audience, because that's just, I mean, because I'd stopped doing any publicity at all for my books. I remember in 2023, I think I sold 23 books or something like that. That's all, because I wasn't doing any marketing. I just let it all kind of die. And then it was the end of 2023, I started the social media, and that kind of took off massively. And so my book sales in 2024 were like, it was like 800 or something like that. So it's a big jump and it's going up and up. And I'm hoping that the social media audience will help to attract a publisher or an agent
Yes,
to
yeah.
take me on. That's what I'm hoping. But I might be able to maybe bypass it altogether because I have um, the three Glasdrum stories. That one is published, one is finished but not published, and the other is to be sort of in progress. Um, they are under a shopping agreement with a TV production company for a potential TV drama series. So
That's very exciting.
that is the most exciting thing. And I don't want to get my hopes up because I know that these agreements are, they're just trying to find an interested person to, company to fund it and develop it. And I know that, well, the writer's route is filled with disappointment, isn't
Yeah, sadly, yes.
it? So I'm bracing for disappointment, but it's nice to have the interest taken. And one of the nicest things that anybody's ever said to me about my books was somebody from the TV company said when they read it, it reminded them of a Scottish version of Big Little Lies by Leanne Moriarty, which is one of
Oh,
my favorite
wow.
books and one
Yeah.
of my favorite TV programs. So that was a huge compliment, and even if nothing comes of it, I'll hold that in my heart.
Yes. Quite right, absolutely. Um, so yeah, you've talked about trying a different approach, but recently you wrote an article for the Scots magazine. So can you tell us how that came about?
Yes. Well, that was that was really nice to be asked to do that. Um, and I think the commissioning editor had seen my videos on social media, and I think she'd read at least one of my books. And so she just contacted me and said, would I like to write at one of my camps, which I was absolutely delighted to do because I've been, and it sort of kick-started me because I've been meaning to write about my camps. I just haven't had time because I wanted to put them on my website. So it was great fun to write an article about one of my camps, and it was so much easier than writing fiction because all the facts are there. So I really enjoyed doing that, and it sort of made me think. And I think that they've commissioned another article later in the year for a survival camp I'm going to be doing.
Oh, that's
And I think they're
great.
planning to interview me as well. So that's nice. It's a great magazine and it's such a prestigious magazine. So I was really chuffed. It's nice to get paid for writing as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. And it's all those lovely colour photographs. It really looks amazing.
Yes, it spruces up the writing, having some photos.
Um, so your social media has brought you a lot of engagement, and people love your wild camping videos. So how do you fit all that in with working as well and still writing?
Well, that's the big problem is lack of time. Because I've got a full-time job, even though I've got quite a bit of extra leave that I take from my job. Um, and my kids are older now, but they still, that's still an area of attention. My oldest two are still at school, although they're just finishing school. But um, and I estimate that I spend about 3 to 4 hours a day on average. Dealing with my social media. That's not including the time away camping. So that's editing videos, because I'm always trying to have videos in my drafts and going through my footage, and I'm posting on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And I do really love and appreciate so much all the comments I get. I mean, I just posted a video the other yesterday, I think, and it's got about 400 comments on one platform, and I'm just trying to read them and reply to as many as I can. It's just massively time consuming. And so for now, I've been agonizing with this quite a lot. And for a while, I thought I'm going to have to stop doing the camping on social media because I want to get the novel written, because the novel I'm working on at the moment is a thriller set in Glasgow about a wild camping content creator. And this, I'm really, really pleased with the story for it. But then I also feel like building up the social media is what's going to help me to find a publisher. So I've got this kind of, I could write the book and self-publish it, or I could carry on with the social media and hopefully find a publisher that would allow me to take maybe some more unpaid leave for work and then concentrate on the writing, because it's nice. Yeah. And I've just kind of got to accept that I can't do everything. So I am going to concentrate on the social media at least till the end of this year, build that up as much as I can in the hope that that might help me to find a publisher or an agent for the books, and then finish the books. But I mean, I've got, well, one ready to go. It's but the juggling of time is difficult. I just yeah, it's
Mm.
exhausting.
And you
But
said you've been writing some short stories as well.
yes, I'm working on a trilogy of sort of the the kind of horror dystopian type stories that are set in the wilds, and they're all linked by kind of wild camping and to an extent content creation. One of them's properly post-apocalyptic, but I thought there'd be quite a nice trilogy. And I had the idea for them when I went to Barra to go. I was going to go camping. The weather was so bad, I ended up not camping. But I took the little flight on the plane to Barra, and it involves like it's a post-apocalyptic story where you have to steal a plane, and there's zombies and all sorts of things. So it's a complete change. But yeah, that's just trying to find the time to do that is a bit
Yeah,
tricky.
so difficult, isn't it?
Yeah.
So lastly, what advice would you give to any writer thinking of self-publishing or using a platform like the ones you've mentioned to build engagement?
I mean, it's just I feel like I'm a little bit out of touch with the self-publishing because I self-published my books in 2016, 2017, and I think things have changed a lot even since then. So I feel like I would have to almost relearn how to self-publish because so much has changed. And as with everything, it's everything gets more and more complicated. Um, I mean, it's quite nice having the control over your own books and your book cover and all that kind of thing. And it took me about 5 years to break even because I reckon I spent about £3,000 per book. That's on a developmental edit, copy editing, proofreading, and book cover design, plus, a few £100 on sort of marketing. I used like Facebook ads and Amazon advertising as well. Um, and it took me about 5 years to break even. And it is quite nice now that any money I do make, it's off. I don't have to share it with anybody. But not that it's a great deal of money. Um, and the social media again, it's a great way to make yourself known to people. It's a lot of work though. And then you've got this thing with, are you doing social media or are you going to write? It depends how much time you've got. And I'm not quite sure why the my camping has been so popular. It's really captured people. So whereas I was doing social media before just about my books and about the writing process, and I tried really hard to do kind of entertaining videos about my books or about, the writing process and things, but nobody ever watched them. They just weren't popular at all. Whereas the camping does, and I can kind of slip in a little bit of book And I kind of found that with the early book publicity that I did when I first self-published, it was really my blog about my experiences in Tunisia that got me the audience, rather than, just posting about my books.
Mhm.
I think the trouble with social media now as well, if you're just posting about like a product you're trying to sell, even if that's a book that you've written, people are very resistant to being sold
Mm.
to and wary of being sold to and things. So um,
But you've kind of built a relationship in those platforms, I think, that is really sort of will want to engage with you and support you.
I think so. I think so. And the good thing about self-publishing, I think, is that people do like to support, a struggling artist who's trying to do it on their own kind of thing, rather than a book that's published by a big publishing company. You've got people don't feel maybe so sympathetic, although you don't want people buying your books out of sympathy, I guess. Or do you? I don't know. So yeah, I mean the social media is fun, but I think I quite enjoy making videos, and I've been making longer and longer videos. Some of my most popular video on TikTok is a 20-minute long video, which has had 1.9 million views, I think. It's
Wow.
and it's brought me an income. Well, the last time I looked, it's made $3,400 just from that
Wow.
one video. So
Hmm.
that's the other thing about social media is it's unfortunately a lot more lucrative than writing novels,
Right. Yes, that's sad news, isn't it?
isn't it? It- so that's the other thing that's battling with, writing versus doing social media, because I am making not enough to live off, but a decent income from social media. So that's another pull in that direction,
Yeah.
and it makes it harder to give that up
Yeah.
compared with writing, and it's difficult to write a novel because you never know if you're going to get any money from it.
Yes, it's a real, so it's a long
A
game, isn't
labor,
it?
it's a labor of love, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then I suppose there's always the hope that the book will be extremely popular, or you know TV deals and things like that. Um,
Yeah.
but then there's this is the love of the art as well. It's not just about the money, is it? It's
Yes, it's
it's
that.
nice to express
Yeah.
yourself and things,
Yeah.
and there's so many things that I think about, that I like to put in the novels, like thoughts and stuff that you maybe wouldn't necessarily want to sort of express on social media, but that you can put in a book, So,
That's amazing.
so
Well, Fiona, lots of luck for the book that you've got waiting to go and all your future projects. And thank you very much for spending some time with us today.
well,
Thank
thank
you
you
very
so much
much.
for the opportunity. It's lovely, and I'll definitely going to sign up, and I look forward to getting the newsletters and things.
Great. Super. Right, I'm just going to press stop now.